Hey, what's up, everyone? Sam Shaw here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. Super excited to be back today with another client interview for you guys. Today, I'm excited to have Jack on with us. Jack just recently finished going through the summer internship recruiting process for summer 2024 and actually wrapped up pretty early on in the process, which is awesome. And, coming from a non-target school too, I just wanted to get him on here to talk to you guys about how he was able to have the success that he had, and hopefully you guys get some takeaways from some of the things that he did, and these things can help you with your own recruiting process as well. So, Jack, first of all, thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. If you don't mind, maybe kick things off for us by just introducing yourself real quick, like give our audience a little bit of information on just kind of who you are and what your profile and background is, and then we can kind of take it from there.
Yeah, so I go to a non-target university in the Midwest. I basically kind of had like no finance experience before this. My parents didn't even know what investment banking even was. And so probably when I was just going through this process, I wasn't even part of my school's like investment banking club,
Mm,
which is basically like a lot of feeder for a lot of the Chicago banks. And I just knew that kind of being like the non-target of the non-target, I knew
mm.
that I was going to be like in a disadvantage. So going through this process, I knew I was going to need a lot of help. And so I saw like, a lot of the ads for Wall Street Mastermind on Instagram. And so just looking at the testimonials like this one just kind of really convinced me to join.
Gotcha. Okay. So I guess to start off, we usually like to tell people like first things first, what was the outcome of your recruiting process? Like where are you going to be going?
Yeah, I'm going to be going to Piper Sandler.
Okay, gotcha. So that's obviously a great offer. Like that's probably one of the top middle market banks out there, right? So like what did it feel like when you got your Piper offer? And also like I don't know, who did you tell first, and what was that like? What was that conversation like, and what was their reaction?
I literally could not speak. I was trying to say thank you so much to like the interviewer, but I think it just was just a mumbling of words. And then the person who interviewed me, who was calling me, was just laughing on the phone, and he just said like, really glad to have you, and hopefully you choose our group to join, blah 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 blah. And so I instantly called my parents, and it was like I I I I teared up a little bit because it was just like so much work that I put in, and it's
Mm,
just being able to, have that call that I really wanted was really worth it to me.
yeah. You said that your parents didn't even know what investment banking was. Like what was their reaction when you told them?
They were just really happy because they just know like I put in like a ton of time to it.
Yeah.
My dad like started like trying to like study up on what investment banking was, like watching like watching like tutorials on like what is investment banking. So I really appreciate that he like tried to like learn what it was, and he just knew that it was like a good job. And
Yeah.
when I just showed him like my offer letter, he just knew that it was a reputable job.
Yeah. I mean, parents like to be able to go out and brag to their friends about their kids. And so if he's going to want to do that, he has to at least know what banking is, right?
Yeah. Um,
That's awesome though. So like, I guess if we go back to the very beginning then, right? Like, cause you joined Wall Street Mastermind, I think like at the beginning of your sophomore year, right? It was
mhm.
like late August ish. Um, had you done anything for investment banking recruiting prep prior to that? Like up to that point, were you already trying a bunch of stuff on your own, using a bunch of other resources? Or was it like Wall Street Mastermind was kind of like the first thing that you did? Like you joined as soon as you knew you wanted to do investment banking.
Like I looked at like what everybody usually looks through, like the 400 question guides, and then the breaking into Wall Street guides as well.
Mm,
But I just looking at like an 80-page PDF and trying to really study that wasn't really like my style.
mm,
And just knowing that, I think I had an interview call with, I think, Joseph, and he asked me like a very like simple accounting question.
mm,
And even though I had studied that beforehand, not being able to answer that, just knew like, wow, I just needed the help
mm.
from just a program.
Gotcha. Okay. So you had done a little bit of your own studying with the guides. You mentioned like investment banking. I think like at your school, like there's an investment banking club that's kind of like a feeder, probably like a lot of non-target schools. There's usually like one club where
Yeah.
anyone from the school that wants to break into investment banking has to join that club. And if you're not in the club, it's almost like impossible for you to break into banking, right? So like, did you ever try to break into this club on campus? And like you just weren't selected, or is it like you didn't even know to apply to this club in the first place?
Yeah, so I I joined the pre-theater to the theater club
Mm,
during my like second semester freshman year. Then I took a summer class, which was a really bad mistake because that really bonds my GPA up
mm,
to a point where I couldn't even apply to the club because I guess I had like a 3.7 GPA after that class,
mm,
and the cutoff was around like a 3.8. And so it just goes to show like those investment banking clubs are only like taking kids who they know that are going to like get in for sure. They're not what I knew that they weren't gonna take a risk on me. And so I
mm,
just knew that I would, needed like much more help.
mm. Got it. Okay. So you got disqualified before you can even apply, basically. Like
Yeah.
they filter people out by having everyone take this class, and then if your GPA drops too low, then oh, actually you don't have to take this class as a prerequisite, but you just happen to take this class and it dropped your GPA, is what you're saying.
Yep. Yep.
Gotcha. But your point is just that hey, these feeder clubs, even though they sound good, in reality, they're even if they have good placement, it's because they're only taking like the best candidates that are already kind of shoe-ins anyway.
Mhm.
So like it's kind of like there's no point basically, right?
Yeah. And then for my investment banking club specifically, they didn't allow kids to network until like second semester
Hmm.
of their sophomore year, which kind of gave me an advantage because going through like all those networking modules and being able to network with the bankers beforehand was really helped me a lot as well.
Why do they not allow that?
It's because they care more about their reputation about the program rather than like kind of like the kids themselves. Because if one kid messes up, has a really bad coffee chat call with someone else, then it kind of looks bad onto the program. So
Mm,
they want to like make sure like the students are like well trained before they go in, like well trained technically as well.
gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. But sounds like a pretty limiting constraint to place around
Yeah.
your candidates, especially coming from non-target school. It's funny because um, I've actually worked with someone from that club at your school, and so
Yeah.
he still came to us even though he was in that club because I think he was like the only international student in that club, and
Mhm.
um, and so like obviously as international students, it's hard to get an offer. We still helped them get an offer at Bank of America, so it was a good outcome. But I'm familiar with the club that you're talking about, though, so that's
Yeah,
very interesting.
it was Nishant. I watched that. I watched that Spotify podcast, and that was
Ah,
like one of the videos that I was like, yeah, this guy goes to U of I. I'm gonna. Oh, oops, I already said it. Whatever. He's gonna join, and so I was like, well, that's what kind of convinced me, basically.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, that's the guy I'm thinking about for sure. So, so regardless, like you you couldn't get into this club, so you knew you needed extra help. You're already using the guides on your own, but you realize like even after using the guides, you couldn't really answer the questions. Um, and then what made you want to join Wall Street Mastermind was just like, was it just what you said, which is, hey, you saw testimonials, you saw Nishan's testimonial, and that was all you needed to see for you to join, or like, what made you want to do something like this as opposed to say, I don't know, just continuing to try to figure it out on your own or using other resources, maybe in addition to the interview guides that you're using. I mean, God, there's so many resources out there now, right? Like you want to get an investment, they're like a whole bunch of different options or different directions that you could go in. So like my question is, I guess like why did you choose to go with us? I guess.
I guess I guess the kind of like the reason was just really being able to, see as many testimonials and really being able to talk with like alumni, being able to talk with Robin and then kind of hearing his story as well and being able to relate coming from like immigrant parents and just having
Mm,
that, personal connection and just really seeing how he was able to go like through his investment banking process even with more challenges than me kind of like really motivated me to join Wall Street Mastermind because if he was able to do that with those setbacks, then there's no reason for me to like not to be able to do it as well.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Robin definitely had to overcome a ton, so that makes
And
sense.
it was really nice to be able to like being able to meet everybody at the meetup as well, being able to like see you in person and see all the other like members as well. I guess like within that program, like being able to see the meetup, it was nice to see like what everybody else was doing. And it's
Yeah.
just kind of like comparing like what I'm doing with what they're doing. And I guess just during this process, it's like it just made things a lot more clearer. Like I
Mm,
just knew that without joining Wall Street Mastermind, I would be doing I know I would be doing like a ton of things wrong. And I feel like one of the main things that just for me is that I'm a person who's like really hesitant. Like I'm really afraid to like I don't want to I know what I have to do, but there are small little things that I'm afraid to make a mistake. Like, what time should I reach out to bankers? Um, how many emails should I be sending out? Or like should I submit my application now or should I wait until like I'm more like ready? And just having
mm,
those like questions answered right on the spot was really what helps me.
gotcha. So basically, like you need a lot of certainty before you actually go out and act and do the things that you need to do. Like at a high level what you need to do, but there's all the little nitty gritty details in terms of how to go about it, like what to do, not just what to do, but like how to do it, what order to do it in, how much of each thing should you be doing, like all the questions that come up along the way that would have almost like prevented you from going out and doing the things you need to do because you would just be so uncertain about whether you're doing it the right way.
Yep. Yep.
Gotcha. So like, I mean, we're kind of starting to, you kind of already started segueing into the next question I was going to ask you, which is like, what were some of the things that you did inside of Wall Street Mastermind that you felt like, either was really different from what you would have done on your own or like just really made a big difference for you? I mean, like obviously you talked about, going to the in-person meetups and being able to meet other Wall Street Mastermind alumni students and stuff like that. But like, what else? Because like I think a lot of students, especially the ones that haven't gone through this process with us yet, like they're on the outside looking in, they're listening to this episode, they're thinking like, oh, is this for me? Like, should I do this? Does it even actually make a difference? Or like, what if I just Google or YouTube everything I need to know on my own? Like, wouldn't I get all the exact same information? Like, what what do you feel like was the or were the biggest difference makers for you, I guess?
Yeah, I think just having everything organized in such like a structured manner was really helpful. I know that I believe that you probably could like look up everything on Google or like on Wall Street Oasis, but there's just a lot of like conflicting information or misinformation, and just being
Mm,
able to have something that was streamlined and
mm,
being able to be as efficient as possible because I guess just during the recruiting process you're trying to balance your academics, your extracurriculars, and now you have to like network with so many random different bankers and you just don't really have a lot of time. And so just
mm,
having something that can just having like a guide or someone to just be there with you was something that really helps me.
mm. Okay. Um, so basically you're saying like the biggest thing was just having the unlimited on we say like unlimited support on demand with anything you need anytime you need it, and as a result of having that, being able to navigate through the entire process a lot more quickly than you would have been able to otherwise.
Mhm.
That made a big difference for you because I mean, like if we're being completely honest, like investment banking recruiting, the reason why I think it's hard for most people is not because it's rocket science or something, right? It's not like we're trying to do, you don't have to be like a genius to be able to do the things you have to do for investment banking recruiting. I think where most people struggle is more so that the timeline is so accelerated and it's so like condensed, right? Like they start recruiting so early, pretty much like halfway through your sophomore year, you have to be ready to recruit. And then before you can even do that, you need to make sure you have enough relevant experience on your resume. You need to go out and do internships, join relevant organizations on campus. You need to network with hundreds of bankers, like you said. You need to keep your grades up. You need to like prep for the interviews. There's just like so many things that you have to do or you're expected to do. And I think where most people actually fail or most people struggle is not that they can't do these things. Like if I say you had an unlimited amount of time in the world to figure all this stuff out, like I think most people could eventually get there, like with enough time and with enough trial and error, right? But the problem is like when you place a time constraint around it and you have so little time and you have to juggle all these things simultaneously on your plate in the 24 hours that you have in a day, like most people end up dropping the ball in like one or multiple areas out of like all the things I just listed, right? And then like none of these things that we just talked about, none of them are really optional, right? Like meaning it's not you can say, okay, I have a really good resume, so I don't need to network, or like, oh, I'm really good at networking, so it's okay if my GPA sucks, right? Or like, my GPA is great, so I don't have to be good at interviewing. It's like, no, like all these things are mandatory and you have to check every single box. And if you don't, then you're pretty much only going to go as far as your weakest link allows you to go. Right. And so I think like a lot of times people don't realize just how much there is that needs to get done. And they also don't realize that like actually the biggest limiting factor is just lack of time, right? Especially like every year recruiting starts earlier and earlier, right? Like, I mean, would you say that was like your experience as well?
Yeah. And then I've seen, I think like another like decision that I would have probably made if I hadn't picked Wall Street Mastermind would be adding an extra semester to my college experience just to re-recruit for the feeder school in my college. But I guess like that was something that I really didn't want to do. And
Hmm.
I just knew that with Wall Street Mastermind, I would be able to make up that lost time, be able to make up for all the preparatory stuff that I need to go through.
When you say add another semester and recruit for the feeder school, you mean the feeder club or the?
Theater club, yes.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, but you didn't want to do that because then you have to like graduate later, pay more
Yeah,
tuition, so on and so forth, right?
yeah. So Wall
Gotcha.
Street Masterminds was like the cheaper option, and I'm really glad I made that decision.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, look, honestly, um, a lot of times, like obviously, if you are able to get into one of these feeder clubs, um, obviously you should all try to do that, right? I think like whatever resources available to you on campus, you should absolutely use it. Problem is, a lot of times, like you said earlier, these clubs they're only taking the people that are probably going to be shoe-ins already anyway, and so it's like if you were able to get into those clubs, then um, you probably might not need as much help. Although I will say too, we do have a lot of students um, who join Wall Street Mastermind who are already in some of these feeder clubs, even at schools like Wharton and Columbia and like Michigan and UT Austin and like some of these target schools. And we actually have a lot of students that are in Wall Street Mastermind, and they're also like the president of these clubs, for example. And the reason why those students tend to join Wall Street Mastermind is slightly different from everyone else. Like a lot of times they're not joining because they're worried about whether they're going to get into investment banking or not, but they're joining because they're pretty sure they're going to get in regardless, but they just want to make sure that they get the best offer possible, right? So it's like every candidate, regardless of what your profile is coming in, you have like a floor and a ceiling to like what your likely range of outcome is. And then a lot of people, they want to raise the floor and the ceiling, right? And then so like that's the reason why they join Wall Street Mastermind. So like the way that, I would encourage everyone to think about it is just like, look, we're talking about your career. We're talking about like, if we're talking about like, maximizing your potential, there really is no such thing as like having too much help or saying like, I have too much help, or the offer I'm going to get is going to be too good, right? It's like, no, you want to try to get like the best offer possible, right? Like, and so no matter who you are, like, unless you're one of those people who's like, yeah, I have no room for improvement whatsoever, like, I'm the best, like, in which case, okay, fine. But then I would say like, that's a pretty egotistical way to think, right? um, but okay, so like, that makes sense. I guess like my last question for you then is, what's like one piece of advice that you have for people who are maybe still going through the process now? Like, now that you've come out the other side, having gone to a non-target school and, not being in the IB feeder club at school and still being able to um, get an offer secure so early on in the process, like, was there like a piece of advice that maybe someone gave you as you were going through the process that really helped you out, or that really made a big difference for you that you can maybe pass down to other people now that you're done?
I would just say that I think just trying to seek help. It doesn't seeking help, whether that be just through um through a program like Sam's, or just going on as many networking calls and trying to network with other bankers, and really not asking questions just to like ask questions on those coffee chats, but actually try to, get genuine advice. I've, received a lot of helpful feedback on just like kind of how I was kind of presenting myself. And
Mhm.
I guess without that feedback, I think just through this process of talking with going through this networking process, you're calling up with people who you barely even know. You have like maybe some connection or even no connection at all, and just going through this process, it's okay to just make a few mistakes, but you're going to get better. And I feel like I just from before to to the end process, I feel like I've kind of grown and how I've communicated with others and how I present myself. And I think that I know that investment banking, it's like you're actually expected to learn a lot, but I think there's always more room for growth. And so just seeking for help is always great.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a ton of sense. And yeah, I think like to your point, um, a lot of times, like obviously, networking, you're trying to get referrals, you're trying to get a job, or you're trying to get invited to the interviews, but also like what you're really doing there is you're getting in the reps, right? Like you're putting in it's like going to the gym almost, right? Like the more you do something over and over again, the better you're gonna get at it. The better you're gonna get at telling your story, the better you're gonna get at answering a lot of these questions that bankers like to ask, which like it's almost like another way of practicing your interviewing skills, even though you're not actually interviewing, you're just networking. But like that's how you build it into your muscle memory, right? And so it's a lower stakes environment for you to go out, try different things, try telling your story a different way, practicing delivering your answers a certain way, and then like you said, also getting genuine feedback along the way, so that you can go back, iterate on it, further improve yourself as a candidate. And so that's like beyond just getting referrals for interviews, like that's also the other really important part of the process, or why it's such an important process, part of the process. And we very rarely, we almost never see any candidates um, that are successful with the investment banking recruiting process who don't have any like who haven't done much or any networking along the way. It's just like almost never happens, right? And I think there's a good reason for that. So I think that's really good advice. But um, guys, for those of you that are still with us, I think if you're listening to this and you find yourself having a lot of similarities with kind of like what Jack just described, whether it's the fact that you come from a non-target school, you don't have a lot of resources available to that can help you with the process. Maybe you weren't able to get into the IB feeder club on campus for whatever reason, or maybe you did get in and you just want extra help because you know you can never have too much help. I want you to, you know, reach out to us. You can schedule a call with our team. We'll hop on, we'll talk to you, figure out like what it is that you currently need help with and how much help you need. And based on what you tell us, like if we think we're a good fit to help you, we will come up with a customized game plan for, you know, what you need to do. But if we feel like we can't help you, like, you know, at a minimum, we'll try to at least give you some feedback or some advice on what we think you should do, or what we would do if we were in your shoes, right? So if that's something that you're interested in, feel free to go to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street is abbreviated to ST, so it's wallstmastermind.com/apply. And we look forward to talking to you and hopefully helping you out. All right. So with that said, Jack, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. This is, you know, really insightful and also hopefully inspirational for other students who are maybe similar to you, coming from a non-target school. Maybe have been told by people that, oh, you know, you don't have a great chance because you don't go to the right school or whatever. Like, showing people that it can absolutely be done as long as you're willing to work hard, you put in the work, and, you know, you get the proper guidance that you need so that you're not, you know, wasting time on things that don't really matter. Like, as long as you have those things, you absolutely will have what it takes to be successful. So thank you for being, you know, a great example for our audience. And, you know, I look forward to seeing all the success that you have ahead of you, and, you know, what you're able to accomplish, both during your summer internship that's coming up, as well as beyond, like throughout full-time and whatever comes after banking as well. So, you know, definitely keep us posted on all the progress that you're making going forward.
Yep, of course.
Awesome. So guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back with more of these for you guys in the near future. And until next time. All right.